President Isaac Herzog and his wife Michal are coming to the coronation. They're due to fly to London on Thursday evening, and they'll be staying near Westminster Abbey, we're told, because they need to walk to the ceremony, which is on Saturday, on Shabbat, the Jewish Sabbath, and of course they won't be wanting to drive on that day. They're leaving pretty quickly afterwards by the end of Shabbat on Saturday, though there are some scheduled bilaterals in there as well while they're here. But as you say, others have not been invited. Britain has not issued invitations to King Charles's coronation ceremony to the leaders of Russia, Belarus, Iran, Myanmar, Syria, Afghanistan and Venezuela. And that's despite the fact that heads of state from other nations with whom Britain has full diplomatic ties have been invited, and also representatives from British realms and overseas territories. And then there's a sort of second type of snub, which is slightly milder. North Korea and Nicaragua have had invitations, but not for the heads of state, but for senior diplomats. So as you say, something of a who's who of world leaders, but with a few rules. Obviously not the strictest ones, though. There'll still be invitations having been sent out to some countries with questionable human rights records, for example.
Now, speaking of possible snubbing, the United States will keep alive its streak of a president never attending a British royal coronation. What is the reason for this, Jonathan?
Well, we are expecting Jill Biden, but that's, as you say, it's always been the way, and so it's one of those traditions that's being carried on here. Also, I think perhaps it's quite a lot to ask for so many heads of state to fly in. We did just have the funeral of Queen Elizabeth II last year, and many did come here, including Isaac Herzog as well. So I think that to be able to repeat this over and over is something of a diplomatic coup for Britain. But as you say, the Americans do keep away from the coronations. Perhaps one might say it's in respect of the history of their independence from the United Kingdom and the Crown in their history. But either way, of course, the two remain firm allies, and that special relationship between Britain and the United States won't suffer because of this. It is something that's been a long-standing tradition.
And how is Britain itself shaping up for all of the coronation ceremonies and the events surrounding it? What exactly does the public feel like now that they are going to see a royal event that sort of makes it official that they now have a king and not a queen?
Well, there hasn't been a coronation like this in most people's lifetimes, and even those who were alive for the last one probably can't remember it too well, most of them. Of course, the very old might just about. But this is an impressive event. It will look spectacular on television. It will be watched by millions around the world. A select 2,000 will get to witness it inside Westminster Abbey, and it will show off the pomp and ceremony that the British royal family does so well. We saw that sort of thing for the funeral of King Charles' mother last year, and now we'll be seeing the happier version, the more solemn version as well, as it is at its heart a religious event where the king is anointed and effectively appointed as the leader of the nation in a religious ceremony. But in a nod to the diversity in the country now, there will also be a procession of other faith leaders, which will be at the beginning of the ceremony, and then towards the end they will have the opportunity to speak or to address the king with their allegiance. And so that in itself has also been seen as one of the many changes that King Charles has put in place in order to slightly modernise this otherwise very antiquated and traditional ceremony, and to give, as I said, a nod to the diversity of Great Britain. Again, there'll be more representation of people who aren't simply white and male, as the majority would have been in the last coronation.
And Jonathan, just very briefly before I let you go, we cannot move on without talking about what happens to the coins, not just in the UK, but also where the Queen was also the head of state in other countries like Canada and Australia. Is that now going to change over to King Charles III?
Well, in due course, the money will change. Some already has. Stamps, letterboxes, all sorts of things will have to change, but there's no rush to do it. There are still historic ones around from even before the Queen when it comes to mailboxes, and money itself will serve its useful life and then be replaced as new ones are printed with pictures of the King instead.